Hey guys, it's Mathel here once again, and today I want to share the build I've been working on, which is the Elementalist, basically shield charge plus static strike character. So ever since I made my first Elementalist for the league, the Blade Vortex, or just lightning-based spell charge type character, it felt really good, and I just had a fairly good suspicion that basically any attack-based Elementalist would be insane for clear speed with just shield charge plus some other sort of skills. And that's fairly versatile, you can use just about anything, but I wanted to lean towards the lightning side of things with lightning strike and static strike, and ultimately after playing lightning strike for a while and shield charging around for a while, I decided I don't really need a clear skill and I only need a single target. So in this character I am clearing with a 6 link or 5 link plus shield charge, and then running a 6 link static strike on my helm thanks to some Elder sockets. And basically I think that is the way to go with this type of character at the moment, because you don't really need a clear skill. Yes, I could use some other clear skill and it would be a little better, but completely unnecessary, and shield charging around with either the explosion from impulses or explosion from Herald of Ice is more than enough and extremely satisfying. And then we focus on our single target entirely with the static strike, so we get high amounts of shock effectiveness and shock potential, good amount of damage from claw physical into LE conversion, and then our single target is actually fairly comparable to even, let's say, a Blade Flurry, though I don't have any stat stick scaling in the offhand. So static strike, currently not the greatest thing for clear, though with an Elementalist you can very easily use static strike for clear if you have the Helm enchant, let's say, and then run some Ancestral Call, but it really doesn't need to be that way with the other things you can use for clear, and static strike is a very, very respectable single target on the other hand, so why even bother trying to make it a clear skill at this point, and instead just turn it into pure single target where it does quite a lot of effectiveness. So you can see the clear speed of the character at the moment sometimes uses Herald of Ice, sometimes uses Impulsor, because I was still trying to figure it out at this stage, and by the time I got my last Ascendancy for Heralds, I did drop Herald of Ice and started running Wrath instead, so the combo is just Wrath, Herald of Thunder, and Herald of Ash for pure damage, and the Impulsor itself was then helping clear up trash just from the shield charge itself. And the single target here is only on a yellow Elder because that's as far as I've gotten with the character so far, but it is pretty goddamn absurd. We're talking something like 1.3 million Shaper DPS of a fairly reliable nature, so it is quite hefty. The only real problem is going to be standing still and face tanking some things, but with the right setup, I think it could still be done, and done well enough. And this is all currently without the Static Strike Helm enchant, because I valued buying a good Elder helmet with the right sockets and all that instead of the Helm enchant. So the Helm enchant, absolutely lovely, but it doesn't seem to be strictly necessary, at least if you're not using the skill for pure clear speed. If you're using skill for actual clear, I think it's going to be just trash without the Helm enchant. It feels pretty bad, but if you're just using it as a single target, I don't think it really matters to have to wait half a second for the explosions to go off. So you can see the damage there was fairly tasty, and at this point of the character I'm something like level 85, and there's just one more example of the build doing a Haunted Mansion with double Beyond action. This is a tier 10 map, and it basically farms this sort of stuff. Just shield charging into every mob, it's going to explode everything. The only problem can potentially be just a slight lack of area for leaving some stragglers around, and shield charging around corners and all that, and into obstacles and shit, which can be pretty damn annoying as you see throughout this clip. But so far, the character has definitely farmed quite efficiently, quite well, and will probably be my fastest level 90 for the league, because mapping has been an absolute joy on this character, and I don't think that's just this one specifically. It's just more or less the Elementalist playstyle at the moment. Feels pretty incredible and does give you some very nice visuals to go along with it, especially if you incorporate your friend Impulsors into the mix as well. But don't be fooled, Impulsors not at all necessary in this build, and I definitely thought largely about some other chests as well, because the explosion's not that necessary if you go the Herald of Ice sort of route, but I just wanted to get as much shock effectiveness to get a bit of damage, though I think Lawweave will ultimately give us more damage, or a strong Elder chest might as well. So what we're looking at here is a currently now level 87 Elementalist. Most of the clips were more like level 83, 84. I've managed to level the character pretty quickly throughout the mapping process. And it's similar to the previous Elementalist in that you are grabbing the Herald nodes. So Mastermind of Discord was my last 4-point node, but my first 4-point is Beacon of Ruin, just so you can get your prolift going for the Impulsor, for the Herald of Ice, for the actual shock effectiveness. So all of that together early on will give you your clear speed, and that's what's going to let you have clear from pretty much any skill whatsoever, and currently that is with Shield Charge. And ultimately, Mastermind of Discord then helps you for the penetration and for the extra effectiveness on some of your heralds. And the way that I wanted to build was to have my 6th link in an Impulsor, but that was not practical for Static Strike whatsoever, since I needed at least 5 reds in the end. Could have got away with maybe 4 of them, but ideally I wanted at least 5 reds. So I did look around for a few helms, and helms like these, believe it or not, were about 3 to 5 chaos. I bought 2 helms just like this one with less duration, conk effect, and crit strikes on them, and so that's technically a 7 link for our Static Strike, and that cost me 5 chaos because it's just a niche market and no one really needed this type of shit. So that's kind of one of those things you've always got to keep an eye on, that you might be able to make quite good use of things that are completely cheap and unused by anyone else, because a helm like this, if Static Strike were popular, should cost quite a lot instead. So that's why I did that, and now I have just my impulses with my shield charge, which I had to try and slam all kinds of different things into. So we have shield charge, fortify, faster attacks, power charge on crit, I don't really need at all here. Crit strikes is fairly useful to start triggering our damage and our shocks and all that, and added lightning just so it hits a bit harder. So currently you don't really need a 5 or even 6 or even a 5 link impulsor. You could probably get away with a 4 link. So that's not too big a requirement, but the helm in that case needs to be pretty damn good. Or you don't even have to use an impulsor. There are lots of other choices like I mentioned. So an Elder Chest, a Lore Weave. A Lore Weave is probably going to be the biggest damage we can gain, and then you'd build around Herald of Ice a bit more, because the Herald of Ice explosion is definitely enough to actually get things exploding, but it's a little less damage than the other 2 heralds, so I wanted to try and cut it while I'm using impulsors. If you instead go a different chest, you don't use impulsors at all, that's fine. You'll get more damage out of something like a Lore Weave anyway, but you'll then have to rely on Herald of Ice scaling a bit more and maybe run a Hatred. It's kind of going to be a loose template, I think, for an Elementalist, clear speed and single target sort of character. In my case, I'm trying to build around mostly lightning damage, a little bit of fire, and Static Strike and an Impulsor, but you don't have to do it like this. This is just going to be my one version of what an attack-based Elementalist can look like. Now my gear is actually going to look pretty impressive if you scroll over and have a look at the rest of it, and that's just because I got fairly lucky in the crafting process, because there's a lot of cool stuff you can make nowadays with Shaper and Essence and all that, and I have managed to get fairly lucky crafting a few items. So by no means should you look at all of these items and think that's exactly what's necessary to make a build like this work, because on a low end, from white, yellow to even low tier reds, it shouldn't take anywhere near this gear level. This is just the kind of stuff that you can start ramping up to get to the end game. So an amulet like this has a bunch of lightning damage, some fizz as extra lightning, and this took me, I hit it with 1 chaos and it hit it like that. After alterationing a bunch and getting nothing, put 1 chaos into it, there it is. Slammed a Essence of Lightning Wrath, I think, maybe, I don't know, and got the lightning damage, got the Wed on an Opal, and then managed to craft a life onto that. Then actually crafted one of the best physical claws I think going around at the moment, with just a flaring, and then slammed a Regal, got a Cruel, multi-modded it, and here we are. Also had to take off a suffix through beast crafting, and this thing's like 400 DPS, but I was running a 300 DPS claw or 330 even, which was really easy to craft and not at all expensive. And that thing is still going to carry you plenty, but yeah, I was trying to make a nice shaped one with some extra physical as lightning similar to that, but couldn't quite manage to do that. Just a pure flat fizz is fine too, and that's the most part for what I should mention for my gear. Otherwise, the rest is trying to fill out some damage, life, resists, and all of that. Crafted a few of my own little jewels here, so 40 life, Actually, I think I bought that one and ended up buying that one. I crafted similar ones, but yeah, you're looking for some lightning damage, some life, some resists, some shock effectiveness, something like that. And then I've also got a Watcher's Eye with 23% Fizz as extra lightning damage while affected by Wrath. Thanks to a Watcher's Eye like this, it's a bit more justifiable to go pure lightning and drop things like Hatred altogether and cold scaling. So there's still a bit of fine tuning to go with the build, but you can see that we're just trying to get a bunch of claw nodes, some crit and some lightning, and a few jewel sockets, because jewel sockets are pretty good for the build, and then some lightning and Ellie and all that sort of stuff. And life is a bit hard to get on this tree at the moment, so trying to do everything I can with jewels and other crafty shit to get all the life. But it's not completed, and I still do have some reworking to do, and the character has gone through quite a lot of reworks, trying to figure out what I'm doing with my static strike, with storm charges, because initially I was using them, whether I'm using static strike in general or lightning strike, blade flurry, whatever. I've done a lot of crafting, and I originally bought a helm like this with 45 reduced static strike duration, which is a huge quality of life and feels amazing. But if I can't manage to craft it to be similar to this, then I'm just going to keep using this one and have no enchant, which kind of sucks, but is definitely good enough anyway. So the links we have here are less duration, conk effect, crit strikes obviously for 2 crit, and then we have static strike, multi-strike, Ellie damage, and fizz to lightning. And originally for 86 levels, I was running Ancestral Call instead of Fizz to Lightning with Storm Charger boots, so that's 80% conversion, not quite 100. And Ancestral Call feels really good with Static Strike in a lot of situations, and then I'd sub out for Melee Fizz at times, because basically the way Ancestral Call works with Static Strike, this will be the last thing I mention, it does still give you the additional stacks. So if you have Ancestral Call in and you attack, and you hit 2 other things, you get 2 extra charges for the secondary explosion. So you will get 3 charges to go off at once, and if you are continuously attacking with all your Ancestral Call onto different targets and your main target, then you get a pretty large increase in your single target damage. When you are just one-on-one against the target with Ancestral Call, even if you step back and attack with Ancestral Call so you get the extra attacks, you're only going to get shockwaves generated from that one target. So the additional shockwaves for Ancestral Call matter to be generated from additional targets. So if you have additional targets, you can generate additional shockwaves, secondary explosions. If you've only got one target, you're only going to have one shockwave, so then Ancestral Call will be a decrease in damage, and that's when you want to sub in something else for single target. So in some cases, with ads and extra bosses, it can be worth using Ancestral Call. For the most part, at this stage, I'm not using it at all. I'm just charging around, killing things with shield charge, and then single targeting with my static strike in this setup. Currently, that's what the character's like. Hopefully, I'll have a bit more of an endgame update in the next couple days, but it's been a lot of fun. I recommend trying some sort of attack-based Elementalist, whether it's this one or not, because they are a shitload of fun. For now, guys, thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you next time.